All right. I guess I'll kick off this week. This is Josh Drake, Blake Mosel. I'm Corey Olderick. We have Chapter 10, Creating Productive Work Environments. I guess when I think about this chapter or why it matters, it pretty much boils down to you have to have a place people want to come and work. If people don't want to come and work, they're not nearly as productive, and kids lose as a result. If you have that building where the people are showing up late, maybe you have those people that are constantly talking about when's retirement going to happen. You probably have an environment where your students are being affected negatively by just a lack of purpose or feeling for being there. So our goal as an administrator should be make school a place where people enjoy working, and a lot of it was about collaboration and working with colleagues. Teaching's not an island, taking pride in your building, and then wanting to be there. So the first of the objectives here was to define psychological success. In a nutshell, the easiest way to say that is it's people who feel competent, needed, and have a purpose. That's really what it boils down to. Um, and when you think, new teachers, especially, they talked a lot about finding psychological success can be difficult, mostly because they lack competence. They just haven't been through it. They don't know what they're in for, and they may struggle then to see a purpose for their work because they feel kind of like that fight or flight. You forget why you're in education, and you're just trying to struggle through the day to day, so you lose your purpose. Um, in our schools, as administrators, we can help teachers get attain the psychological success if we remain interested in them and are supportive of their work. We have to tell teachers how much we need them. Um, Definitely not a strength of mine. When I talk personally, like, I grew up in a place where, I was loved in my house. I don't want this to sound wrong, but like you did what you were supposed to do because that's what you were supposed to do. You didn't get pats on the back just for doing it, but I have found that I have to find time and take time to remind people how much I appreciate them and the work they do. And I know it's hard. Um, and it's not a strength, but I will just go to classrooms with a piece of like a sticky note, and I will sit in classrooms and I will find something good, whether it's on the wall, whether it's what a teacher's doing, and I'll just leave a note how much I appreciate whatever I saw. It's not evaluative at all, but just something so people know that I appreciate them because I'm not good at it. So I have to make a point out of doing it. And I don't know if you guys are good at that, but it's just not a strength of mine.
No, no, it's really hard for me too, Corey, is because I'm similar to you. I grew up in an environment where you do what you're supposed to, you show up and do your job or whatever to the best of your ability, and you should be satisfied in doing a good job. And I'd never expected a pat on the back or anything like that, but I found that there definitely are people out there that need that extra, that reassurance that you know that they're doing a good job. And yeah, I'll leave a sticky note or do some things like that, and just because it's hard for me to go out of my way and have this conversation of how you're doing a good job, but it's not hard for me to shoot a quick email, drop a sticky note on a desk, go in before they get in the morning, and let them write a quick note, and it means a lot to them, I think.
Yeah, and I think I found too that the more specific it is, the praise, the generalities only go so far. Like, oh, you do a great job. Well, that's pretty general. So if you can find those things, it just seems to help. Um, when things are tough, there's not enough time in the day, or you don't have enough resources to get a job done. They talked about some of your teachers will overcome that. They will fight through. They'll work at night. They'll put in the extra hours. They might go buy their own supplies if they don't have what they need. But you find those others that can't overcome that, and when they can't overcome the shortcomings they may have in their job, it's a lot harder to find psychological success. So as a leader, we have to try to do everything we can to make sure our building is a good place to work in. They had an example there, letter E, talking about if you put your guidance counselor in the teacher's lounge and he or she can't have confidential conversations, you're probably setting that person up for failure. You're not going to get a lot of psychological success for that person. Um, I did have a little story I wanted to share because I thought it fit in good here, and I think this is psychological success to the T. So my first 7 years here, we had a K-12 guidance counselor. He's still here now, but for the last 3 years, we hired a K-6 guidance counselor. So our veteran guidance counselor is now 712. Um, we really thought it was just a need because our enrollment's growing so much in the elementary. It just felt right. So about a semester into that first year, we have two guidance counselors. Veteran guidance counselor stops in and he said, "I just want to tell you thank you." And I was kind of puzzled, it was out of the blue. And I said, "For what?" And he told me that he had really become burned out as a K-12 guidance counselor because he just didn't feel like he was getting the job done. There were too many irons in the fire. He was trying to help with the elementary and some positivity project things, and he's trying to do careers in college with the high school. And he told me he was thinking about retiring. I mean, he's retirement age. He very well could. But he had said those first few months that we had brought on that new guidance counselor, he had become rejuvenated. And some of it was just finding a purpose. Like our K-6 counselor leaned on him for some ideas, and he felt like he kind of had a purpose again. I'm teaching this new guidance counselor kind of the ropes, but then he also felt like his 712 kids he got to spend a lot more time with and had a clearer idea of how he could accomplish some things he had hoped to. And now he had the time to do it. So I think that fits really well with this idea of psychological success. Just something that happened, like I said, 3 years ago or so. So it's kept him around and he's still going. I don't know when he'll retire now. And we would keep
That's
him
awesome.
forever. It's been a good thing for
That's
us.
really good.
Yeah, and we didn't even do it with the idea that we wanted to keep him longer. It
Yeah,
was really so. But sometimes people won't tell you those things, and that's something that as admin we have to be well aware of. You can go to the next one if you want, Josh, unless you guys have anything to share there. But
no, no.
um, objective two, Josh and I broke this up. So the second objective, they're looking at various qualities of productive work environments. Um, so there are 7 characteristics of a work environment that have the greatest effect on employee satisfaction and feeling of success. The study that was done said that if any of those qualities are missing, you become more and more, I guess, less and less likely to be able to carry out your work successfully. You don't find psychological success. So the first one is clear mission, which is on the screen here. Teachers and admin need a mission to rally around, an idea that all your decisions come back to justify what you're doing, what you're buying, why you're teaching, what you're teaching, how you're teaching. And there was a lot of debate or a lot of discussion in there about the No Child Left Behind era and how, missions, it seems simple that we want kids to grow, develop. That seems really simple. Every school should want that. But this idea behind No Child Left Behind really put a focus on standardized testing and an academic focus all the time. There was a group out there, really interesting to read about the 65% solution. Basically said that at least 65% of your school funds that you spend should be invested directly in academic instruction. Um, but what that did was it kind of alienated some people. We left out the social, the physical, the moral things that maybe we should be doing in school. You also saw schools start cutting things that weren't necessary for academic success: librarians, nurses, ag, industrial tech teachers, art. Um, and I think if you look at Nebraska, at least in this area, I guess I don't know the whole state. It seems like we're starting to see pushback on that. The mission for kids is not now strictly academic, and we're not so focused on testing. And I think even at the state level, the Department of Ed's doing better with this too. We're starting to see more of that SEBL mindset and really trying to focus. MTSS teams seem like they've been commonplace in elementaries in this area. And we're now starting with that. I think we're in year 2 with the high school. We have an MTSS group, which I'll be honest, I never saw that for myself as a leader in the high school. But that whole child approach and the mission to teach kids, all around, pushing for kids to go to trades, 2 years, things that 20 years ago when No Child Left Behind, that mission went away, and it was solely test, 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 get kids to pass the academics, and everything else was just kind of there. So that mission has changed.
Yeah, definitely. I know just you talk about the MTSS process and the whole child, and I mean the boom in CTE programs throughout, I know, our area and a lot of the state. I mean, you see ads running for, different instructors in the trades and things like that. I personally feel it's just amazing to have those things make this comeback that after they were almost dead 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I don't know what your communities look like, but Arlington, we don't have an HVAC guy anymore. I mean, we have one, but that person's on their way out, and we're looking around going, what are we going to do? If we want to live in this community, we've got to have the people that can service our things. So yeah, I'm excited to see CTE coming back. Second characteristic, supportive admin or administrative leadership. This goes through a list of things that teachers want from their administration. Um, they want friendly, open leaders. They want people that treat them fairly. And a big part of it was not using power to punish people just because there's disagreement. I think that's pretty commonplace, but just they don't want to feel like if they bring a suggestion or maybe a concern that it's going to somehow be used against them because if that's the case, you've lost a lot of trust. They want expectations and follow through. I will tell you that's a huge part of what I see in our staff here is if we're going to do this, then teachers expect everyone to be held accountable to this. And if they're not, then they feel like it's not a worthwhile thing, and then nobody's going to do it. So it's important you follow through. Employees want autonomy in their classroom. They don't want to be robots. I think back to a few years ago, I had a science teacher who was very excited. They said, I want to bring you an idea. And I said, okay. And she said, I want to flip my classroom. I said, okay. I said, I know a little bit about flipping your classroom, but I said, give me the reasons why. So she came in, talked to me, and I said, this sounds like a great idea. Let's give it a shot. I think she did it for 2 years and then decided it wasn't what she wanted to do. But it was worth a shot. I was willing to let her try it because I don't want to stifle any kind of, idea that might work. I will tell you the thing that I think she found from it. She now regularly will record a class ahead of time if she knows she's going to have a lot of kids gone. I don't know what track looks like for you guys, but we miss half our building. We're big in one act. So if their kids are gone for one act, we have almost no one here. So she'll record lessons and send them to them. So there have been pieces she's kept, but they just want the ability to try things, to organize themselves and not be micromanaged. Um, the last thing with that point, teachers want administrators to talk to them, not just professionally, but also personally. Of course, they want those opportunities for professional talk, things that concern them or things that they see that are going well, but they really want to be valued as a human and make sure that they are human and that they go through issues just like anyone else. So those are two of the seven qualities, and I guess
Yeah.
I'll pass off to Josh here.
Yeah, no, just going back, I think those connections are so important, understanding what's going on a little bit in a teacher's life or somebody's life and getting to know them because, we all have bad weeks, we all have bad days, and having that understanding and being able to have those conversations, I think is really, really important. So as we go on throughout objective two, the next part is professional culture, and they broke down some different categories here in the text. The one thing that one of the first things they talked about was shared values. You want to have a staff and a school setting that has common values about things. The text brought up things like homework. Do we allow use of calculators on our math? I know in an elementary school that's a big deal. Like, are we teaching them facts? Or are we teaching them how to use a calculator? Um, One of the big things in our school has been this big pushback on accelerated reader or AR. Like at the elementary level, we think it's great. At the high school level, they've always had a pushback on how we integrate it. So building wise, I think we're pretty unified. District wise, maybe not so much there. So having this sense of shared values, what shared values on classroom management, discipline, how we're going to go about things. We go through APL at Silver Lake, that and we have our own set of things where we have six expectations. We call it the Silver Lake Six for everybody, and we surveyed teachers. We talked about it where, hey, these are the six things we're going to talk about. Things like relationships. We're going to see bell ringers in classrooms. We're going to have an agenda on the board. We're going to be, predictable, and we're going to be consistent. Um, the next thing they talked about was just when a professional culture was being committed to the profession, a commitment to the job, showing up on time, being there, being a professional, volunteering for opportunities when they come up. Um, we talked about those teachers that that stay late and that little bit extra, seeing each other do that kind of pushes the person next to you to do that little bit extra. Um, Talked about this a little bit in one of Corey's slides is that feeling of belonging. Everybody wants to feel like they're valued, like people want you there. Um, the thing is, do you want to fit in with the group? They gave the fraternity sorority example. You join a frat and you wear the cool clothes and you do all this, but are you actually involved in it? Do you participate? Are you part of it? Do you want to run for office? Do you want to take on responsibilities? Do you want to belong in the group? Do you really care about the group as a whole? Um, the caring part I thought was really interesting because I know I've seen it in my own building in little bits and pieces where it talks about how a teacher, if they feel they've lost the respect of another teacher, they'll tend to hide and alienate themselves from the rest of the staff. They'll put themselves in their classroom and not come out and not do anything, at least for a short period of time. So that feeling of respect amongst your colleagues is huge. Which takes us to interdependence. The book used the example of how a waiter is in a restaurant's really dependent on the cook. I mean, the waiter's going to take the brunt of it out there, seeing things, be the cook's behind the scenes, doing a lot of the work. Where a lot of this in the school is vertical alignment. The fourth grade teacher is dependent on the third grade teacher, who's dependent on the second grade teacher. Making sure the content's taught and the processes are followed and things like that. Everybody in the school setting is dependent on each other. We're dependent on our cooks. We're dependent on our janitors. We're all a team. And then the Corey brought it up as well, the regular contact, everybody, kind of working together, getting involved in, personally and professionally helps out so much in a school setting. It's not saying everybody needs to be best friends all the time, but we need to, recognize each other. We can't just live in a bubble and have a successful building. The book talked about different types of cultures, the veteran-oriented professional culture, where you have your tight-knit group of veteran teachers that stick together, and they're going to do their thing the way they've always done it, and they're like, new guy comes in, figure it out. We had to figure it out. You figure it out. They let them go do their thing. We have the novice-oriented culture where you have a lot of young teachers there. They're fresh. They have all sorts of ideas and things like that. They might be gun shy in ways, but they're missing that veteran wisdom that you can go and lean on. That as administrators that we can lean on some. And then there's the third, the integrated one, a blend where veterans, are willing to work and offer advice to new teachers and do everything. Um, Thank my lucky stars that we have migrated more towards an integrated type of school at Silver Lake, especially in the elementary, where a long time I think we had a veteran oriented culture where it was tough sledding for a while. But we've gotten to where we have a true team setting.
Yeah, we when I started in Hartington, our average teaching age or average experience for K-12 was 29 years. That was the average.
Oh my
And in the
gosh.
course of 10 years here, the elementary principal was 1 year in. I was brand new. The soup was brand new. We were all brand new administrators. Over the course of 10 years, we replaced about 80%, 85% of that
Mm.
staff. And so we went through the veteran to the novice, and I think we're getting to the integrated. But at times, I feel kind of like the veteran that has to step up and say something because we have so many young people. And I'm not a teacher, but you can just feel the need for that veteran at times. But I agree, we're getting that integrated, Josh, probably similar to you guys.
No, and that's was and our big thing was is we hadn't had to break in a new teacher or do anything. The first new teacher that we had to get was the teacher that replaced me when I stepped into administration. When I became the principal, we had to hire a new teacher for the first time in a decade. I mean, so everything had been status quo for a long, long time. We've, had some retirements and things like that over the past 5 years or so, and it's really started to open some eyes, and we've made some headway. The next part was using talents and skills. Everybody feels better when they're feel like they're valued and their talents are being put to use. You know, have we departmentalize in our upper elementary. We have an amazing language arts grammar teacher. We have an amazing science teacher. I'd put our science teacher for upper elementary up against anybody. And we have a really, really rock solid social studies teacher. And they're all passionate about reading. They're all passionate about math. So we build it so they can each, for a 4, 5, and 6, they can rotate around those three, their strong subject areas. They can teach some reading, they can teach some math. So we play to their talents, and they all really appreciate that. And I actually went to it and I was like, hey, how about, you know, one of you is really good at teaching math. How about we do that? And they're like, no, no, we're all. So I was like, okay. So we're playing to that. In the similar light, employees who are stretched to meet their challenges are generally happier in their work. If you challenge somebody and you provide them these new opportunities to stretch themselves and go out, you're like, hey, a sped teacher we've had and we've pushed into, how would you feel about being our sped director? How would you feel about going there? We push our support staff, our paras. Hey, I think you'd be really, really good as a teacher. We offer them the opportunities to go and do those kinds of things. So I think we do a good job of providing those opportunities. Um, the one thing it talked about, I mean, I think the text references NCLB a lot of No Child Left Behind in there. And they talked about it in the testing and all these kinds of things. And they talked about how, your mandated test, the state comes down on you and we've got to do this. They talked about framing that in a way as it's an opportunity to improve learning for all students. I know that's what we try to do. We try to use an assessment as a tool. We don't say, hey, we're doing this because the state says we have to take it. We're like, hey, how are we going to use this to improve instruction? And that's the way we've tried to frame it. Um, Comfortable facilities. They talk about, everybody wants to walk into a clean, safe, comfortable environment. Do I have enough space in my classroom? Do I have enough storage? Is it attractive? Are repairs made promptly? Do things get painted on a regular basis if there's a scuff mark? Do we have intervaled facility improvements? Do we have projects? I mean, we have a building that was finished in 2020. I mean, there's things we're going through it. Our summer repair list right now. Um, everybody, I will tell you right now, we have a book storage room, a storage room in the middle because that's the way we wanted things instead of having storage in the classrooms. We completely gutted the thing this year, and I am reworking the storage in it. That's my carpentry pot project for the summer is to do that. Um, find ways to make a bad situation better. When we first built the building, the entire building was institution white. I mean, it was like a beige and it was the entire thing, and everybody was depressed and mundane and everything. First thing when I walked in, they were like, can I paint my classroom? I was like, you can paint an accent wall. Let's start with one wall before we, turn the whole thing over. And that's made some things better. They talk about air quality. A lot of them rooms can be stuffy. We've got a fresh air system that pumps in fresh air throughout our building, which also impacts room temperature, things like that. Our biggest issue when we built the building is we have an HVAC issue where three classrooms are tied to one thermostat, and occupied space makes a difference. Where two groups are gone and one classroom's in session, it messes with things a lot, which we're slowly working out. But I do know that, a nice, clean environment's good for the staff, it's good for the kids, it's good for everybody.
When I first started teaching, I was in a older school building that did not have air conditioning, and I can tell you that those first couple months of school that definitely impacted learning. Because when it got up to, it was an old brick building, and my classroom had tar roofs right outside of the windows. So when it hit, 90 degrees in August, September, that was miserable, and we'd have to find different classrooms and stuff, and that definitely impacted when you look at the weather, your overall day. You're like, oh man, now I'm gonna have to find a classroom in the afternoon and move around and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Yep.
That's a pretty big extreme because I don't know how many school districts have to deal with classrooms that don't have air conditioning anymore, but
I think we all have to deal with something when a unit goes out and does something, though.
that's
That's
true.
a big thing. Like we have things even with new systems where they aren't working right, and all of a sudden in the middle of winter, the temperature drops from 70 in a classroom to 52, and I've got a group of kindergartners that are chilled to the bone. I mean,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
it happens. Um, the next thing is, where they talk about time, adequate time. There's never enough time. I can't get it all covered. I can't do it. And so the text really brought out the point of the question of, all right, how can we limit through classroom management our non-instructional activities? How long does it take us to take lunch count? How long does it take us to take roll? How long, I mean, how much time is wasted on sharpening pencils, things like that? Um, what to omit? Are there things in our curriculum that we can probably just spend a little less time on? I mean, go through your prep with that. They talked about how much time are we wasting when our projector isn't working? How much time are we wasting when our laptop freezes? How much time are we wasting when these things come up? And a lot of that I took a screenshot of a part of the text that said questions to help teachers find more time for instruction. I mean, so you're asking this list of questions to teachers like, hey, what are we doing? How can we work through this process a little bit? And I thought some of them um, were pretty good. I really, the class, I think there's some classroom management things that can get some things going in the time. And then they talked about some things that are negotiable. And I know there are things at Silver Lake that we just don't talk about being negotiable because there's a set of teachers that'll be whatever, but sports and activities. I mean, how much classroom time is missed at the end of a school day during basketball season um, to put kids on a bus and ship them off, or you talked about track and doing things like that. Are we stopping everything for morning announcements? What are we doing? How are we building our school day? So those
Yeah,
kind.
we're trying to address that, Josh. Like track is really big here. We have good golf. And it seems like we have a junior high track meet on Monday, high school on Tuesday, then golf goes on Thursday. So one of the pushes we've given our athletic director as a task is find a way to have all the high school golf and track on the same day. Not necessarily that we're going to the same places, but we miss out on so many days in the spring. I don't even know how we teach sometimes with our.
Yeah, and it was one of the things. So I went to my daughter goes to school at Johnson County Central, so I went to their district track meet, and Louisville was there. And about 1 o'clock, I see another bus pull up. I'm like, what's going on? And my daughter said, yeah, they send their kids in two waves. If you don't do a field event, they're not sending you on the first bus, and it doesn't matter where they go. They send them all on the second bus, so they're not missing school. It's like, I don't know if
That's a
I've
great
ever seen
idea.
this. I
It's a
don't know if
great
I've ever
idea.
seen a school do that, but yeah, I kind of thought that too. And the last part of what I was going to talk about, what I was talking about today was materials and equipment. What do you have? The internet, do you have time to research all the good and the bad out there? The text talked about Merlot, the multimedia resource going out there. I mean, there's stuff out there. I have to remind my teachers that teacher pay teachers isn't a curriculum, it's a supplement. I mean, you find some cute bulletin board stuff through there, do whatever. But and then the text talked about, there's schools that just don't have resources. My first job, I had to fill out a form for every time I'd want to take a pen from the workroom. And then here we're like, hey, make sure you have what you need. And then and we're in a district right now where I have some teachers are afraid to ask for resources because they've had it hammered to them for years that, hey, we don't, schools are poor. You don't have things. You don't get to ask for stuff. But, sometimes those resources are there. You just have to make sure the teachers understand that they're available.
Okay, I had a objective number three, and it covered teacher stress and burnout. So, not too surprising that teachers can get stressed and burned out. Anybody in education can understand that, but that can happen in any job field as well. Different types of stress that the book covered, time stress, and which we've talked about a little bit already. It's just you're not having enough time to complete some of the requirements or the things that you need to get done in the classroom. So I looked up a couple of different things and I saw that most teachers work for 50 to 60 hours during the work week, and 80% regularly work outside of the contracted hours. And I thought that was interesting. I honestly thought that would be higher because I don't know many teachers that don't work outside of contracted hours, whether that's, uh, grading. That's a pretty common one, but technology, as great as it is, has also made us very easy to access. And I know a lot of teachers spend time at night simply just answering emails or helping, students or whoever with assignments or missed work or talking to parents. So it's very easy now, I feel like, to work outside of your contracted hours as a teacher, especially. Situational stress, it's just that perception of inability to cope with the demands of a situation. So the book talked about a lack of preparation in college. A lot of uh, first year teachers, beginning teachers, don't feel that they are adequately prepared for different situations. Also, hiring practices can come up in this. So when I was a fifth grader, I remember that my teacher was hired 3 days before the school year began, and that's what this is talking about. That put that teacher in a very stressful situation. I'm sure that they missed out on a lot of different things to be able to prepare for over the summer, and that's one that, as administrators, I think it was a unique situation, but one that we can try to steer away from. Make sure that you hire as early on as possible, but that's not always, not always in an administrator's control. Encountering success or encounter stress, that can be when dealing with an individual who's critical or hostile. So whether it's a student, a parent, community member, and then anticipatory stress is just future events that cause anxiety. That can be like conferences or NSCIS testing or anything like that. And they just say to support your teachers as much as possible in those types of situations.
Like the situational stress you talked about. I like to build, so in Hartington, we build a teacher schedule every year based on student requests. So we do everything we can to make students requests drive our schedule, right? And we release that in April every year for the next year because teachers want to know what they're teaching, how many kids they might have. A couple of years ago, we had to wait. We had some staffing issues. I didn't get out till like the middle of June. I have never seen so much situational stress. We have a lot of really good professionals. A lot of people weren't even teaching new classes, but it was the idea that I don't know and I don't have enough time. And it's like you're all so well prepared, but it happened. It's a real thing, and we saw it, and they still had 2 months to get ready for classes, but
Yeah.
you throw something at them that's a little different, and you get that stress sometimes.
Just threw that wrench into things. I know the first few years that I taught, I didn't have anything like that. But when I went to a different school district, I did have that where I saw the kids, the numbers, all of that kind of stuff of the year coming up. That's awesome. It is really nice at the end of the school year to kind of prepare for that ahead of time because a lot of time we're using our summer for different things. So I can see where they got a little bit of stress, but at the same time, I guess you don't know what you don't have for my first few years when I didn't have that. So stress and burnout, they talked about there's several adverse effects, including sensitivity to criticism and hostility. So if you have a stressed out teacher, sometimes they might end up feeling a little bit more critical towards any sort of feedback that you're going to give them. It can lead to health issues. I grew up in a family of educators, and the joke was that hypertension is just very common amongst teachers. I luckily don't have any problems with that, but that was just kind of the joke growing up. With high blood pressure is something that comes along with the job. Factors in burnout, you can have role ambiguity. So if you're not sure what you're supposed to be doing, that can add to burnout. Responsibility and authority imbalance, whether you have too much on your plate. So we've talked about this in past presentations, whether you have to mentor or you just have a lot of different things as a veteran teacher that maybe were put on your plate, or the opposite. Maybe you're a new teacher and you don't feel like, we've said earlier in this presentation, you don't feel like your talents are being used. That imbalance can create a little bit of burnout. Maybe you don't feel like this is the correct job for you. Imbalanced workload kind of fits in there too. Lack of support, that's a big one for burnout. Job insecurity, and there's different proactive actions that administrators can take. Scheduling, so advanced notifications and alerts, just like you talked about there, Corey, making sure that you give enough time for your teachers to feel like they can prepare for whatever they need to in the future, whether that's scheduling or just letting them know like these are some activities or events that are going to take place in the future. Give them advanced notifications. You can offer professional development opportunities, give immediate feedback if you're going to go through and do a walkthrough or any sort of observation. That situational stress can occur too with teachers if they don't know, how you perceive a class observation or a walkthrough. Just support your students or your teachers as much as possible, whether that be with students, whether it be with parents, classroom resources. And we've kind of talked about all of that already too. I think especially with new teachers, that support with parents, because that's not something we can kind of in college simulate as much. I think that's really important. Teacher absenteeism was something that this objective talked about as well. Have a positive culture, and that can make sure that your teachers are showing up to work. Sometimes they don't want to overburden other teachers or even subs if you have that positive culture. And I thought this was interesting because I haven't heard of any other district doing this, but monetary bonuses. So give